fight. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. Below, we fly that flow. Spread that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that road. Funk and control. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. Bounce that all. We fly it all. Funk it all. We fly it all. Funky and free, we fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that splitter over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all.
Hey friends, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti, and of course I forgot to zoom this camera. I'm having an allergy attack, and so yeah, I'm rubbing. I don't know what, man. My fucking usually my allergies are in my face and my nose. Today they've attacked my eyes. My eyes are so itchy, Jesus, and I can't really like focus on anything all that well. I'm very frustrated, and I look awful. I look awful. Turn away. Turn. We're just gonna do this camera the whole live stream. Hold on. Maybe this should just be a building live stream. Jesus, I'm hideous. Guys, remember that episode of Seinfeld? I'm hideous. Let's look at some flight footage. We're gonna dive into what's the right-sized battery here today, and I've got some Caillou Mini footage to show you, which perfectly kind of exemplifies what happens when your battery is a little bit too small. And so yeah, we're gonna dive into that. You can look at me small here for the majority of this live stream. So yeah. Caillou Mini, 2.5-inch build, very, very lightweight, with Flywoo wide, Flywoo 04 light wide angle camera. Kind of a heavy setup, all things considered, even though it's light. Of the lightweight setups, this is heavier. Does that make sense? Just keep this here, and then the camera won't focus on me. Yeah, of these lighter weight setups, this one is pretty fat. Big old RC and Power 1204 motors. Like I said, the 04 light camera and canopy are a little bit lighter, a little bit heavier rather. And then I run the biggest batteries that I can fit on the top plate of this thing, and that's going to be a part of this discussion that we're about to have. 80 grams. 80 grams, and then the battery that I really like, this Tattoo 2S450, is 26 grams. So 106 grams total. How do we find the best battery for this specific build? I'm going to show you what happens when you put on a battery that's a little too small, and or motors that are a little bit too big, and or propellers that are a little bit too draggy. This is all these things connect, and or your all-up weight is too heavy. All right, there's a connection between all of these things that I'm going to show you here. So right before the stream, I flew two quick 2S450s. This first one is a Tattoo high volt 2S450 non-R line. The non-R line. This is like Tattoo's old school battery. Still a really good battery, but the R lines are better. The second battery that you're going to see me fly is this GNB gray and pink 450 high volt. Not quite as good of a battery as we're about to see, but still a decent battery. Weighs about the same. It's on the discharger right now. And so the rest of this setup is, what are these propellers? These are the HQ T 2.5 by 2.1 by 3. Not the pitchiest prop, not the lowest pitch, lightest prop, somewhere in between. These are the props that in the testing that I did a couple of weeks ago are, I believe, the best balanced. They're durable. They're a really good choice. I think these are my favorite of the 2.5-inch prop. You just got to make sure that you've got enough jam for them. Oh my God, hold on. Before I forget, let's talk really quickly about your amperage meter. Sometimes it's not right, and I'm going to show you the dumbest way to fix it, but this totally works. It's a little bit of a weird way of fixing it. What was that about? It's just a weird bit of resistance there, whatever. All right, so hold on. In Betaflight. Where's Betaflight? There it is. In Betaflight. So you fly a battery. And you fly a 450 mAh battery, for example. And at the end of the battery, all right, the beginning of the battery, 3 milliamp hours. We're good. That's normal. But at the end of the battery, even though we didn't run it all the way down, all right, we didn't run it all the way down, we're still at 3.56 per cell. Can you guys see that? Yeah, just barely. We're still at 3.56 per cell, right? We could have run it down a little bit more than this, but it's only saying that we took 232 milliamp hours out of it. So the amp scaling is wrong. This at 3.56 volts at like a light cruise, right? Almost at a hover. You know, this battery is almost done. We've certainly taken more than 232 milliamps out of it. After an adjustment, flying the next battery, when we start off, 3 milliamp hours, 4 milliamp hours, that's fine. I'm showing you that to show you that, like, I didn't sit and idle it on the ground forever. I know you couldn't see that just now, but there you go, 3, 4. With an adjustment to the amp scaling, at the end of this next battery, even though we're still at 3.6 per cell, we're close enough, 342 milliamp hours. We're getting closer, okay? And here's how I did that. At the end of the first battery, I came in, I plugged into Betaflight, I went to power and battery, and this scale, this is where all the amperage meter stuff happens here in the amperage meter section. This scale here was up at 800. I was going to move it to 1200, but I thought that I remembered the correct direction to go here is down. It's kind of backwards. The higher this scale is, the slower the milliamps will count. The lower the scale is, the faster the milliamps will count, is what you need to know. And so I went from 800 to 500, and that made the situation better. Now, I'm going to go to 300, and then I'm going to fly another battery. And at the end of the battery, I'm going to see what the milliamps say. And if it shows 450, great. If it shows 400, then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go down to 250. If it says 500, I've gone a little bit too far, and I'm going to go up to 350. There you go. That's how you get your amperage scaling perfect without having to use a multimeter, without having to really think too much about it. Super easy. Just go fly and look at your DVR afterwards, or just look down at the milliamp number, or put it in your post-flight stats. It's just, you can layer that on top of like everything else you're doing. You don't have to just spend time dialing this thing in. You can just, if you have a rig that when you land it, the number of milliamps used does not match the battery, then you make a quick change here and away you go. Do not make this change in the quad's OSD. It doesn't work. You have to make this change here. I know that's annoying, but yeah, there's some kind of a bug in Betaflight where if you change the amperage meter in the quad's OSD with it powered on, the changes do not like save. It's very weird. So yeah, you have to do this here. You have to plug into Betaflight. So if you notice that it's wrong, make a mental note, write it down. Next time you plug into Betaflight, come in here, change it, and then do whatever else you were going to do in Betaflight. So yeah, there you go. There you go. A little quick win for you, as the successful and apparently cool people say. But now we're going to get back to how you know if your battery is too big or too small. The other thing that factors in with this is the voltage of the battery. Going up in voltage can help the situation I'm about to show you. Going down in voltage won't necessarily help. So, brand new battery, fully charged, good quality battery. This Tattoo battery rocks. Again, this is a 2S450. Here's something important. This is the biggest battery that will fit on this particular build. I mean, technically, sure, I can cram this 2S850 in here, but other problems arise. Apparently I can't, because I have rabies. Come on! Get in there! There it goes. Sounds like my Friday nights. There we go. Okay, so technically, yeah, all right, we can fit a 2S850 on here, but if I hold this thing by where the center of gravity should be, it almost falls out of my hand. Okay, so this battery is shifting the CG really far back. Also, this battery is going to come flying off this thing because it sits so far back. There's so much of the battery back here after the end of the top plate. If you're going to crash ever, which you are, this battery is not great. This battery is going to get ejected out of here. It's ruining the flight characteristics by fucking up the center of gravity. This is not a realistic battery for this rig. This particular build, right? Not necessarily this frame, because there are different camera cages for the front. A smaller camera might give you a little bit more space to push the battery forward. But this specific build, my build here, the battery stops at the back. That's it. You're not pushing a battery any farther forward. And so if I want something that flies good with a good center of gravity, which it's still a little tiny bit rearward, but you can see it kind of tilting back just a little bit. But it's not like falling out of my hands. And I can't go smaller than this battery for a 2.5-inch prop rig. Okay, so this battery is realistically the biggest that I can fit on this build. We have space constraints mainly, okay? And so 2S450 is the biggest battery that I can put on this build. And so this is the best battery for this build, because as I'm about to show you, I'm having a problem with too much sag on this setup. And so with these motors, with these props, this is the best possible battery. But we're making some changes to this rig. We're going to go down to smaller motors, and I'm going to show you why in a second here. But when it comes to finding the best battery for a rig, in this specific scenario, I have some constraints. And this battery is going to be the best one with those constraints. This battery is not good and is not right for this build. I can't change the battery to be bigger, which would help. I'm going to have to change the build. And so the process of making your builds perfect, you know, in choosing the best battery, you might actually have to change the build. And this goes for bind and flies as well. Okay? Like, every single one of us flies a little bit different. Every single one of us builds a little bit different. Every single one of us wants a different flight characteristic, flight style, whatever. And so we all have to go through this process. And it's important to realize that you can make the battery situation better by going to a smaller motor or a lighter prop or a lighter all-up weight, okay? Everything is connected. So this is what it looks like when you've got either too pitchy of a prop, which I don't, too big of a motor, which I do, and or not big enough of a battery. But I can't go to a bigger battery on this build like we just said. So brand new, freshly charged battery. Let me make sure that I'm just going to shut the other camera off for a minute. Okay. There we go. So I'm also going to make sure that I don't put all the other elements over stuff. There we go. Okay, cool. So absolutely brand new battery. This is also not a battery that's been like over discharged and abused. It's not puffy. It's a clean, good battery. Okay. Fully charged. We've already sagged down to 4.12. That's normal. We've got 04 light running on here. It's a somewhat heavy version of this kind of build. But on a fresh battery, you come over to somewhere clear and you hammer full throttle. And you hold it for about a second. And here's the problem. I haven't even held it for a second yet, and we've already sagged the battery all the way down to 3 point. We've only taken 11, we've taken more than that, but this is no good. This is a brand new, freshly charged battery that you're getting a low battery warning from after 13 seconds. Sure, we went full throttle, but this build is not right now. The motor, and I can tell you the issue is the motors. These RC and Power 1204 motors are hungry bastards. And they want more than this battery can give. And that's what we're seeing here. I think I hold full throttle for even longer. Now we're down to 3.33. Now we're down to 3.28. We got a land now warning, for Christ's sakes. This amperage over here is wrong. That's the annoying thing about having the amperage scaling wrong, is I don't actually know how many amps this thing is pulling. It's certainly pulling more than 17%. It looks like I've backed off the throttle by now. I'm coming down to 76% throttle. That's why this amps came down. I think it was a little bit higher than that a second ago. But this right here is a perfect example of when you've got either too small of a battery, too low voltage of a battery, or motors that are too big, all-up weight that is too high, or propellers that are too pitchy. These things all work together. I could go to a much lower pitch or even smaller, like go from a 2.5 inch to a 2-inch propeller. That would make this situation a lot better. I could lighten this thing up. That would make this situation better. I could go from a 2S 450 to a 2S 650 if I didn't care about the thing flying like crap and the battery ejecting off the back, and that would make the situation better. Lot of different ways that you can change the flight performance, fix problems like this with your builds. That is the Tattoo battery. Here comes the GNB battery, just so that you don't think that I'm feeding it a bad battery to kind of create this situation and sell you, even though I don't make any money on like 3S or something like that. Full throttle, low battery, 3.32 volts. No, don't do it. Don't do this to your batteries. I held full throttle for a little bit less this time. And now on this second battery, the amp scaling was a lot better, and we're seeing 30 amps, so that's a little bit closer. But it's still not quite right. These motors are probably pulling, I would guess, like 40 plus amps, to be honest. But yeah, so the battery is sagging too hard. If all of your batteries are old, that's going to be a hard thing to kind of figure out. It's probably worth it for you just to buy a fresh battery and kind of do this test. Here's the other thing. Now, in this scenario, you could argue, and you wouldn't be wrong, that the right way to fix this problem is to go to a higher milliamp battery. Again, on this particular build, that won't fit and it'll wreck the CG. But here's another way to rule that out. Here's, in my opinion, why I'm not going to be doing that on this build. This build is going to be going to 3S because I do like these motors, and I do think that these motors are a really good match for this weight, this camera system, what I want this build to be, which is like really just, I want this build to be an itty bitty like 5-inch rig in that like mega power to weight ratio, mega response time. And so we fly it. We go and we fly it the way that we want it, that we want to rip this thing around. In this case, this is like the ultimate neighborhood ripper, in my opinion. It is also going to get used for live broadcast work, but I digress. And so we fly the thing. Don't fly it soft. Don't fly it overly aggressive. Just enjoy yourself. Fly it the way that you normally fly. And then we take a look at the runtime at the end of that. We had a couple big full throttle blasts here. But we got 2 minutes and 35 seconds out of this GNB battery. Here's the Tattoo battery. We're just going to fast forward to the end. And we got 3 minutes and 8 seconds from this Tattoo battery. That is the amount of runtime that I want. I don't need 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I would rather have something that's lighter, crashes better, better flight characteristics, and can get me 3 minutes in like a normal flying scenario. If I'm really pushing it hard, 2.5 minutes is fine. If I'm taking it easy, it's going to run probably 3.5 or 4 minutes. And so the amount of milliamp hours in this battery, which is 450 times 2, right? This is a 2-cell 450 mAh battery. So each cell is 450. So 900 milliamps total is the amount of milliamps that I kind of want, because it's giving me the right amount of runtime. It's giving me the runtime that I'm looking for. But it sags too much. If there was a significantly better battery option, like, so for example, right, this is a Tattoo non-R line, and their Tattoo is claiming that this battery is 95C. If there was a 195C Tattoo R-Line version 6 battery that was also a 2S450 that I could buy and run on this rig, maybe it wouldn't give me all that sag, and then it would still give me the runtime that I want. There is not. This is one of the better 2S450 batteries out there, and it's nowhere near where we want it to be. Typically, you're not going to find that. Like, if you buy two different batteries, if you buy two different 2S450s, one from GNB, one from Tattoo, and they're not like marked super low C rating or something weird like that, you're covered. There's not going to be a magical battery that won't sag down to 3.2, and it'll only, in that same scenario, it'll only sag down to 3.6. The best battery versus an average battery, instead of it sagging to 3.2, it's going to sag to 3.25 or 3.3. It doesn't make that big of a difference. This is this is an extreme case. These motors are really, really powerful. 1204 is a lot of motor for a really lightweight rig like this using really lightweight batteries. And so, in this scenario, with this build, the solution is either to go to 3S, up the voltage, which decreases the amp draw and decreases the amount of battery sag. What I'm not going to do is go to a 3S 450. I don't want that extra weight. I don't need that extra runtime. A 3S 450 is 1,350 total milliamps, right? Because it's 3 450 mAh pouches, right? Versus 2. So what I'm going to do is go to a 3S 380 or 350, whatever I can find. There aren't a lot of options. I think those are going to be the two options, 350 or 380. The 380 GNB battery is much more common. That's probably where I'm going to land. I'm going to have the higher voltage, which is going to help with the battery sag. I'm going to have roughly the same amount of total milliamp hours, so I'll get the same runtime, and the battery will be roughly the same size. It'll potentially be a little bit wider, so it might be a struggle to get into these battery straps, but I can deal with that. And so that's the end result for this build with these motors. But before we do that, because I have to swap the whole AIO out to make this thing run on 3S, before we do that, what we're going to do, thanks to Matthew Arose, is we're going to try smaller motors. Matthew sent me a couple of different 1203s and two different 1203s. The T-Motor 1203 7000s, which I think are going to be a little bit low kV, but we're going to find out. And he also sent me a set of RC & Power 1203 11,000. That looks like an 11,800, 11,500 kV motors. He also sent me another set of these 1204 8000s that's already on this thing. So shout out to him again. But for right now, this is a way that we're going to troubleshoot this problem. Going to a smaller motor is going to have much less of an amp draw because the motor will... The size of the motor designates how hard it's going to pull from that battery. And so the smaller motor is going to just request less from the battery. And then the battery's not going to sag as far down. Also, a smaller motor is lighter. And so the all-up weight of the rig is physically going to go down. That's going to give us more runtime, and it's going to have to do less work every time that the motors want to take the thing from 0 miles an hour to 40 or 50 or 60, or however fast these things go. And so this is... We're in a pretty extreme situation here with this amount of sag, but a 1204 is a big motor, right? Like, I know the difference between 1204 and 1203 does not sound massive, but I promise you it's bigger than you'd think. And there's this really cool website here with a stator volume calculator. I just put the link into the chat. And so you click Add New, and we're going to do 1204. Click plus, and then we're going to do 1203. The height of the stator makes a massive difference in the power of the motor. So this website gives us two things. It gives us the surface area, and this is good for if you want to know how cool the motor is going to stay. And then it gives you the volume, and the volume tells you how much power the motor is going to make. The difference in surface area is actually not drastic between these two motors. And that could potentially be another part of the problem here, because the 1204 is way bigger when it comes to the volume. So the 1204 motor, the stator volume is going to ask the battery for a lot of power. But the surface area of the motor is not that much bigger to cook off that heat that's going to get created when that bigger stator asks for all that power. And that is what happens when you go with a taller motor versus a shorter motor. The shorter motor will always run cooler. And when the magnets get really hot, they lose a lot of efficiency. And so motor heat is a really big problem, especially when you're in a situation like this where you're getting a mega amount of battery sag on a fully charged battery. Cool? And so this is such a great example here of what happens potentially when you go with like one, if you're on like a 12 in the reverse situation. If I were on a 1203 and it was running fine and I wanted a little bit more power and I went to a 1204 and all of a sudden it's like drastically different, that can be because the motor is starting to get too hot. There's a ratio that I kind of figured out a while back with this stuff, which is the ratio of the width of the motor versus the height of the motor. And so for freestyle, for hardcore, if we look at like the most popular motor sizes for each different class of what we're doing here, racing 2207 hands down. And so what's the ratio of a 2207 motor? That's easy. It's 22 wide, it's 7 tall. So we take the smaller number, the 7, and just start adding it to itself. 7, 14, 21. So 3 to 1. That's it. That's all you got to know. So for racing, 3 to 1 is the ratio that all of the top racers are using. And so that, let's be honest, that's the right ratio. FPV racing has been around for a decade. That's the right ratio. For freestyle, some people run 2207s, totally fine. A lot of people like 2306s. 2306. Take the smaller number and add it to itself. 6, 12, 18, 24. 24 is right next to 23. Close enough. 4 to 1. 4 to 1 ratio. So now that motor is wider. And the wider the motor is, not only is the ratio of width to height different, but the wider the motor is, the farther out those magnets are, closer to the airflow from the propeller. So the wider a motor is, the more cooling it's going to get to keep the magnets cool. One of the reasons people like me prefer 2306s for freestyle is that they're a very consistent motor. Every single time you go full throttle, you get the same amount of power because they're always nice and cool because it's a little bit wider than taller. 2306, 2207. Racers want the lowest possible weight and the most possible power. And so they're using a taller stator to get as much power as I forgot to mention, when you make a motor wider, it gets significantly heavier, and it does make a little bit more power, but nothing like when you make a motor taller. When you make a motor taller, it makes a lot more power. And so we look back here, 1204, 4, 8, 12. Perfect 3 to 1 ratio. Great 3-inch racing motor, let's say. 2.5-inch racing motor. 1203, 3, 6, 9, 12. 4-to-1 ratio. It's going to stay cooler. It's not wider, right? These are both 12 millimeters wide, but the height makes more power, and power makes heat. And so in this scenario, we're going from the 1204 to the 1203, which is going to reduce the amount of power that the motor pulls from the battery, which is going to reduce the amount of heat that gets created, which is going to reduce the amps that get pulled. For both, it's going to pull less amps because the motor is not going to get so hot, and the magnets are going to work better. But it's also a smaller stator, so it's literally going to pull less juice from the battery. We're going to get more runtime. We're going to get less all-up weight, and it should make a pretty big difference. I do think that in the end, I want this to be on 3S with these 1204 motors, because one of the goals for these rigs that are dragging around the 04 Lite is for them to be able to do like more cinematic kind of work out in the wind, and these little rigs in the wind are really tough. The USA Criterium Cup safety weenies are currently, they realize that they don't have drone rules, and they're currently making drone rules, and these are just people that have a lot of money invested. They're not people that understand anything or care about art or care about... It's weird. They don't seem to care about the sport growing. They're just... Yeah. And so it's not looking great for drone regs within the Criterium Cup series. And so I'm going to have the lightest possible setup. Long story short, at the events that I've flown this year, I did some testing with the little stuff, the little 04 Lite stuff, and the TV truck was like, this is the TV truck on the non-pro broadcast. They broadcast all day long. They took a whole bunch of shots from the Caillou Mini. Like, the 04 Lite footage is good enough for these live streams. And what I think happened is that the safety people saw me flying these around and got used to them. Well, then when the pros started running, I grabbed the Cine 30 and Cine 35 and put those up, and all of a sudden the safety people were like, "Oh my God, you're gonna kill someone." I think it was a situation of, like, you know, they got used to one thing, and then you fly something like much bigger. I should have maybe just flown the big shit the whole time, or might not have mattered though. They might have just had the same reaction, but yeah, I don't know. But long story short, I want to get these itty bitty builds as competent as possible in serious wind, and have them be able to provide like as clean a shot as possible without bobbling around. At these events, I have to go over 40 miles an hour to keep up with these cyclists, and these events are outside, and there's always wind outside, and we always seem to be in these cities that have these buildings that make the wind swirl in like a really difficult way for the PID loop to handle. And so it's a really tough challenge. The last 4 years, I've been flying 2.5-inch box frames. This year, since the FAA rules changed a little bit, this year I did a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch rig, and the difference is incredible. Just having it be heavier and having it have those bigger props made a massive difference. And so now I might need to go in the opposite direction. So I need to have like the best possible response time on these things. And so that's why this is eventually going to go to 3S. But for right now, before we swap the AIO out and pull everything apart, I think it makes a lot of sense to go to a 1203. I'm also very curious what the power difference will be. There's a chance that these motors are too much. There is such thing as a motor that's just too big for the size of propeller or for the pitch of propeller. And so maybe the 1203s will be completely fine, and they'll be the perfect match for this setup. We'll find out together. And I kind of want to start doing a little bit of that work here today. But the decision of what battery to run is tied into all of these other things. If you, but, changing motors is a pain in the ass, and it's kind of expensive. Changing the all-up weight of the rig, kind of difficult, can be kind of expensive. Changing propellers, yeah, that's cheap, but like, you don't necessarily want to change your propellers based on battery sag. You want to change your propellers based on if you want to fly the thing faster or slower. If you want to go really fast all the time, you want a higher pitch propeller. It's just meant to do that. If you want to go slower and or have better response time, a lower pitch prop is going to be what you want. Also, you're going to change your propellers based on durability. Higher pitched props are heavier and more durable. Lower pitched props are lighter and less durable. And so don't change propellers to fix a battery sag problem. Change the batteries. The propellers are the cheapest way to help with that. Fair enough. If you only have $10, then maybe propellers are the way to go to get a handle on the situation. But in the grand scheme of things, batteries are a middle ground, right? Batteries are a little bit more expensive than props, but a lot less expensive and a lot less time consuming than changing an entire set of motors. And so changing the battery is going to be one of the best ways of dialing a rig in. And so you're going to balance the run time, you're going to balance the all-up weight of the rig, and you're going to balance how bad the sag is. Also, like, it's about you. Like, if this is a build that you just like, it's getting a ton of sag when you go full throttle. If you just decide, well, you know what, this is going to be my cruising build, and I'm just never going to go full throttle, that's fine. That's totally fine, right? Like, that's another way to sort of make adjustments to this stuff. But if you want it to perform as good as possible, and you're seeing a lot of that sag, yeah, higher milliamp battery, if you can fit it on the build, is probably the easiest way to take care of that. In my scenario, I can't do that. This is the longest battery that I can put on here. And so eventually I'm going 3S, but for right now, we're going to try going down. We're going to try the most expensive option. Well, no, I guess going 3S is the most expensive option because I have to get a whole new AIO. I'm going to now go with the second most expensive option, which is changing an entire set of motors, which fortunately, because of beautiful people like all of you watching, I can do this for not a fortune. As much as I would love to test all the motors and all the things, that is just prohibitively expensive. But luckily, there are some very generous folks out there who send me stuff or join my Patreon, or buy some stuff from my Etsy store, or any number of the other ways that you can support me. Watch the live streams. Tell your friends about the live streams. Do a clip of the live streams of me screaming and yelling and post that in your local group. Patreon helps me out the most. Here's the live streaming schedule. Etsy has a bunch of stickers and hardware and other fun stuff that you can buy that helps a ton. Over on Fiverr, you can buy my time if you want to learn a lot really fast and like cater this discussion specifically for you. That's a really good way of doing that. Over on Teespring, I got some fun shirts and other random nonsense. You can do a PayPal rather than a super chat if you don't want YouTube to take 30% of your money. Here's a link to our Discord. To get full Discord access, you have to join the Patreon for $3 whole a month, which is like 10 cents a day. Here's a website which will allow you to search transcripts of all of these live streams. If you remember me saying something but you don't remember specifically what stream it was, click through here and you can search. And then using my affiliate links helps a lot as well. Replace your bookmarks with someone's affiliate links so that you don't forget to use them and forget to support people that you can watch on YouTube for free. I've change family members' bookmarks to affiliate links, whatever it takes. Support people on YouTube so that we can keep making cool stuff. I have affiliate links for Amazon, GetFPV, PyroDrone, Race Day Quads, Newbie Drone, Weebleed, Beta FPV, HD0, GepRC, Flywoo, FPV Cycle, Brain 3D, Oh My God, Emacs, Hasingi, Banggood, Camera Butter, and AliExpress. I forgot that I had a GepRC affiliate link. That's kind of awesome because I'm about to have to do an order from GepRC for this. This is one of two. I can't find any more. And the other one is Happy Model, and I would rather do GepRC. This is one of two AIOs that I can find that are more than 20 amps. This one's exactly 20 amps, which will be fine. That's 80 total. Have ELRS on board and are 2S to 4S. That is not a very popular set of specs for all-in-ones. Luckily, GepRC seems to make pretty good products, and so this will probably be a totally fine AIO. But yeah, 70 bucks. I guess motors cost about 70 bucks, so I guess switching the AIO is not that much more expensive than switching a full set of motors. But hey, some of these AIOs nowadays are like $100, and that's not what you'll pay for these little micro motors, the full set of these micro motors. So yeah, switching the AIO is switching voltage, especially like from 2S to 3S, is going to be one of the more expensive things. So yeah, there you go. There was something else. Oh my God, dude, Rotor Village. What does anybody know what the actual customs and tariffs and all that bullshit between Canada and America is this week? Because I tried to get this AIO is in stock at Rotor Village, a Canadian FPV company with lots of stuff, lots of really good stuff, great selection of parts. But the shipping was rough. The shipping was $64, which I begrudgingly was like, okay, and I checked out. But then they messaged me a few days later and they said, hey, we worked everything out. The estimated duties and taxes are $102. And so I told him to cancel the order. I'm like, you know, $165 extra dollars for duties and taxes and shipping is a bit much. And so yeah, that was kind of sad because I had found all kinds of good stuff on Rotor Village, man. I'd found a bunch of 3S batteries that I was excited about. They have the Flywoo ND filters in stock, which I really want for this guy here, for the Flywoo Wide. That made me sad, man. So yeah, now I guess I have to do an order direct from GepRC for this AIO because nobody else has it. But yeah. What did I have on here? I had that AIO. Oh, they also have HQ props that are really hard to find. The T3 by 2.9 by 3s. Flywoo 04 wide ND filter set. They also have the HQ 3.5 by 2.8 by 3 propeller that's hard to find. GNB 530 mAh 3S battery for like a really long runtime battery. And then they've got the GNB 300 mAh 3S. Tattoo R-Line 650 mAh 4S. I was kind of looking forward to trying one of those out on my frame. And then they also had Beta FPV Lava V2 4S 680 mAh batteries, which again I was looking forward to trying. So I was all excited about this order. But yeah, I 160 bucks in shipping, duties, and taxes. Like that's ridiculous. And I also felt terrible that, like, you know, I put the order in and then they had to do all this work, like calculating everything out, and then I'm like, well, fuck you, no. But yeah, I mean, I guess the lesson here is that America is a terrible, terrible place, and we should all leave. I don't know. Hopefully we survive, and then some people with functioning human brains that aren't, you know, just the absolute worst human beings in practically all time go away and are replaced with somewhat caring people that have functioning human brains. But yeah, that was a bit disappointing, but whatever. That gives me more time to do the, you know, like if that order had shipped and showed up, I might have gotten all excited and carried away and not done all of this 1203 testing, because this is gonna take a minute. I'm gonna have to hook these motors up, and I'm gonna have to hook these other motors up. And then we're gonna have to go back to the 1204s. I think there's one more set of motors that I want to test floating around here. I think there's a set of 1202 and a half. Yeah, the HDLRCs. I'm curious if a 1202 and a half. I think the answer is no, because I have a set of them on the Baby Turtle 2.5. But yeah, I have a feeling that 1203 might be the right spot. We'll find out. I don't know. I kind of wish there was a 1203 and a half, but fuck that. Just go to 1204. It'll be fine. So yeah, that's how you pick the best battery, friends. You got to balance all of those things. It's not just about runtime. Like, there's this terrible, very common, like, basic level thinking, basic bitch level thinking that runtime is all that matters with runtime, and then like voltage is the only way that you can change performance. Oh, I built this rig and it sags too much. Well, the only way I could possibly fix that is going from 4S to 6S. No! Milliamp hours, very important. Very, very, very important. If you're running the smallest milliamp hour battery possible and you're getting a lot of sag, stop it! Stop that! Tell your friends. That being said, going up in voltage is arguably the best way to fix battery sag, because if you match up the weights of the battery, in this case, if you go from a 2S 450 to a 3S 380 or whatever, if there's a battery that weighs the same, right? It's a weird metric, but the weight of the battery is how much lithium polymer is in it. And how much lithium polymer is in it is basically the milliamp hour of the battery. And so if one battery is heavier than another battery, almost certainly it has more milliamp hours within it. And so going up in battery voltage, as we've found out here on this channel over the last couple of years with 1.6 inch prop tiny whoops, right? Going from 1S to 2S. Going up in voltage is arguably the best way to fix battery sag, because you can build it in a way that your all-up weight does not change at all. But the higher voltage gives you more efficiency because the amps come down. And the reason why that happens is because amps create heat. A lot of amps creates heat, and heat is the waste of electricity. And so going up to a higher voltage battery brings the amps down, and it brings the amount of heat down. It's not a free lunch, though. Going up in battery voltage can be a lot harder on the ESC. And so, like, just, you know, immediately going to a higher voltage setup is not necessarily the right kind of plan. In my opinion, spending like 10, 15 bucks on a battery that has drastically more milliamps, but still is as many extra milliamps as you can stomach and or fit on the build, right? And when I say stomach, what I mean is like the rig's gonna get heavier, right? And so like you go from a 450 to an 850. That's pretty extreme. That rig is gonna gain a lot of weight. Maybe only go to 650, but by going all the way up to 850, you'll certainly figure out if more milliamps is enough, right? In this case, this thing is sagging down on a fresh battery to like 3.2 something. That's crazy. Going to an 850, like it might make it only sag down to 3.5, but that's still too much, man. Like on a freshly charged battery, if you go full throttle and it sags from 4.10 to 3.5, that's still a bit much. And that, again, that's why, like, on this thing, I'm going to 3S. Like, we're going to 3S. But we're going to do a little bit of testing along the way. And so, yeah, there you go, man. That's one of the best ways, arguably the best way, to just balance everything out, right? Runtime, sag, will it fit? The voltage. Keep in mind the weight is going to do a lot of different things. A heavier battery is going to crash a lot worse. You're going to start breaking more shit in crashes. It's also going to make it fly different. So don't ignore the fact that the higher milliamp batteries are going to weigh more. That's going to change a lot of things. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, but in over a decade of doing this and dialing rigs in to be as close to perfect as possible, that's what I've learned. In the chat, YouTube did the thing was first. Kevin Sumner was next. You can FPV Fizz, Eco, Levster, Dannon. Can I get a channel? Frank, Dr. Nicholas, Ricardo Penders. There you go. I'm going to start just reading. Sometimes I just read the first page of people. If you want your name read, you got to get here early, or just type at CiottiFPV and ask me a question. Dannon says, hit those likes, people. CiottiFPV, how you doing? I'm struggling, but I'm here. I'm having an eye-only allergy attack, and so I can't focus all that well, and I look like absolute shit. So that's why I'm sticking with this scene here. You guys have to just keep staring at the Gep RC Taker F405. Actually, no, I'm going to make you stare at my little Linktree website. There we go. That makes more sense. Here's another little reminder. Ryan Sadat stumbled across the fact that a lot of these AMAX motors, AMAX being a German motor company that I always forget about, some of the AMAX motors give you the option. They give you a lot of options. Look at all these different KVs you can choose. But yeah, some of their smaller motors they can actually make the stator 3-bolt. 3 by M1.4, which is what some of these little sub 250G frames are. And so this right here, this 1303 is actually the biggest motor that you can get for a 3-bolt motor mount. And they do sell it in a high enough KV. And so like, it's kind of tempting. It's pretty expensive. $17 per motor if you get 2 or 3 of them. $15.20 per motor if you get between 4 and 19. And then I'm sure the shipping is going to be absolutely absurd. But if enough of us wanted to try these, we would all have to decide on the same KV. But if enough of us wanted to try these, I would be willing to get 19 of them or 20 of them. I mean, going from 1520 down to 1425 is not that big of a deal. But still, if a bunch of us wanted to try this, I'd be willing to do it. This would be a pretty specific kind of thing. And AMAX motors are not usually super durable. So this would not be like a super good basher motor, I don't think. But yeah, there it is. There is the biggest possible motor for 3-bolt motor mounts, which are all you can get on these sub 250G FPV 2-inch builds. 1303 might be way too big on these 2-inch builds. I really wish that they had a 1202 and a half. A 1202 and a half 3-bolt mounting would be so nice for these 3-bolt motors, but nobody makes that. Other than this 1303, the biggest 3-bolt motor that I've found is the Aquila 20 1103, which is great. It's a great motor, but all of the 11 none of the 11 series motors have the 2mm motor shaft down below the bell. All of the 12 and up series width motors do give you the option of a 2mm motor shaft, and that makes them way stronger. And so, like, what's interesting about this is that, like, it's got that 2mm motor shaft, so it will be good from a durability standpoint, but just in general, people that have run AMAX motors and crashed them a lot, I've never heard, like, oh my god, they're so durable, it's great. I typically hear that they're not all that durable. It also has a goddamn motor screw instead of the C-clip. How nice is that? So, yeah. I love that this exists, but I think that 1303 is too big. What if, like, money no object, what I would end up doing is the 12,500 kV. Just make it give it all the RPM that I possibly can. And then, yeah, sure, the motor's really big, but it makes a million billion grams of thrust. And so now you're getting something from the fact that the motor is too big, because it would be run on a little itty-bitty 2-inch prop. 1303 is a motor size for a 2.5-inch prop, or 2.5-inch tri-blade, or a 3-inch bi-blade. And then so putting this onto a 2-inch propeller, either you're going to go with like a 2-inch quad blade or 5-blade. I don't want that on these freestyle rigs. That's too much blade area. It's going to get pushed by the wind really hard. I want to be running either a bi-blade or a tri-blade. And so for a 2-inch tri-blade, which is what this would need to be, the 12,500 kV would just be where we would want to go. Speaking of AMAX motors, if anybody has... This is a long shot, but if anybody has a set of the AMAX Performante 1303 7500 kV motors with the 4-bolt motor base, I have 2 good ones for you. Just 2. That's it. I also have QAVS Mini parts. There's only 2 arms in here. But there's an extra base plate and top plate and all the other stuff. And so if you have a QAVS Mini, let me know. This used to be a 4-inch, but it's actually not. The arms in here are the 3-inch arms. But yeah. Get this out of my house. Please. What's happening in chat? Eco says, I know you as the Whoop. Have you ever dabbled in Whoop racing? I've not. I find FPV racing to be incredibly frustrating. It is just not fun at all. Could be because I spent over 10 years in autocross, somewhat competitive autocross, which is motorsport, the least expensive form of motorsport racing. And I kind of got all of that competitiveness out of my system. I mean, just in general, right? Like growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I was cultured to believe that like competition is the way and it's important and it's all that matters and winning is all that matters. And it's just not true at all. And it's super toxic and it brings out the worst in people sometimes, more often than not, I'll say. And so, yeah, the competitive element, I don't enjoy. And like, to some extent also, like, for me, racing is seats in a steering wheel. Racing is, and one of my biggest passions in life, is motorsport. And, FPV is not that. FPV is, I think cars are the perfect form of racing, to me. Just me. I'm sure most people disagree with that, but for me, cars are the most perfect form of racing. They make an awesome noise. You experience G-force that you can't in any other way. It's this amazing engineering challenge. All these things go into it, and it's just amazing. FPV is the best possible way to move a camera around in full three-dimensional space. And so, like, racing in FPV, it's not the right way of using it. And so, like, maybe all these things are why that frustration kind of just builds in me. But yeah, I just don't enjoy it. I do not enjoy FPV racing at all. I think that finding a way to go through gates or gaps that looks really cool is way better than trying to get through gates as fast as possible. But that's just me. I need to do a lot of filming, and I've been loving the RC car drifting, but I'm interested if you have raced whoops. Nope. I've certainly tried it. When I first got into FPV a little over 10 years ago, I immediately went towards FPV racing. And it was just not fun at all. And then I started flying freestyle, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, this is it. This is the move. And then after many, many years, I started to get into cinematic stuff. And that's really where it came alive. Dan in FPV says, sending a lot of antihistamines. C2C. I almost canceled the stream today, to be honest. Because, like, yeah, my face feels like shit. C2C says, great tool to set proper MAH amperage meter scale. Use the Kiwi Quads Co. NZ current sensor calibration tool. Jesus Christ. Let's see. Let's see what that is. Let's do a little search here. Somebody was mentioning something not too long ago. I have a feeling this might be what it is. Why you should use current sensor. Cool. Hey, look at this. Instructions for using the calibration tool. Fly a battery until you're comfortable its capacity has been used. Oh my god. Yes. Okay. I forgot to mention this. That is super important. Some of us fly our batteries down to 3.5 volts at a hover and then land. And on some builds, that battery will bounce all the way back up to 3.8 volts storage voltage. And now you don't have to storage charge it. And guess what? Now that battery is happy. It's going to last a long time. Other folks fly batteries down to 3.2 volts per cell, where they're like practically on fire. And so what a perfect number one thing. That's different. If you want to fly your batteries down to 3.2, more power to you. They're not going to last very long, but more power to you. You're allowed to do that. If you want your batteries to last a long time, land them at 3.5 at a hover. If you want your batteries to last a really long time, land at 3.6 or 3.7 per hover, right? And so what a perfect way of wording this too. They could have just said fly the battery, but they didn't. I love this. 10 fucking thousand points for that. Mark down the current reading from Betaflight OSD and when? Mark down the current reading from the Betaflight, but like when? The current reading at a hover? When you're disarmed? I'm assuming they mean at a hover? Recharge the battery using a charger that will tell you the MAH put back in. Record the total MAH put into the battery and put into the second input below. Connect to Betaflight and record the current scale in the third field below. Enter new value into Betaflight from the fourth. Rinse and repeat so you get an accurate reading. Usually 2 to 3 times for a very accurate scale. Well, okay. I mean, I gotta be honest here. In 2 or 3 times, I can use my ape method and get it pretty accurate. It won't. It probably won't be as accurate as this. I'm confused though. Mark down the current reading. Put it into the first. Oh, but wait. No. They don't mean. Why'd they use the word current? Milliamp. Mark down the milliamp reading. Because look, MAH reading. Okay. That's better. Yeah. Word current shouldn't be there. This is great. Let's do it. We can do this. Shit. No, I can't. I unplugged that battery. This battery though. This battery. Yeah. Let me turn this charger all the way up. What's that mean? 1.4? 1.5. All right, I'm going to charge this at 1.5 amps so it gets done quick. 1.5. And we're going to charge it back up to high volt. Yep. Let me pull the rest of these batteries off because I don't want to charge these other batteries. Oh, this is cool. Yeah. Let's do this. Okay. So, because I have the numbers from the first DVR. Yeah, cool. And this, the Toothster will tell me how much MAH is putting in. Yep, it just put 2 MAH in. What's the battery at right now? It is at 3. It says 3.9, but that probably means that it was at like 3.8 resting. When the charger starts pushing on it, it like immediately goes up quite a bit. Cool. This is great. This is a great little tool. To be honest, though, if you forget this website, just taking that scale number up and down by like 200 at a time will accomplish the same thing, and then fly it and look at what the MAH is. But yeah, this is slick. Very, very cool. Good call, C2C. Levster says you have to reboot, maybe. I think that's in reference to changing the amperage scaling in the OSD. When you save and reboot, and it doesn't do it. So yeah, rebooting is not the answer. It just doesn't work. I tried all kinds of ways to get it to work. It just wouldn't. FizzBeauty says, I know you hate Amazon, but posted a link in general chat. You need that. LOL. What is this? Vever Screenhouse. What was it? What would this do? To stand in and not get eaten by the mosquitoes? Yeah, this would be cool. Put this up on the front porch. Nobody will know. This won't look insane or anything. Striker says, thinking of doing a Bando Turtle 2-inch on BT 3.0, RCN power 1202.5, 11,500, BT 3.0, Tiny Whoop 450, 2S batteries. Thoughts? Will the battery fit on the top plate? It will indeed. And that's almost an identical setup to a bunch of mine. So yeah, that'll be good. Ryan Sadat says, happy Sunday. Ryan also says, do you think an 1103 could be enough for the 2.5 inch? Potentially, but you'll bend the motor shafts constantly, so it's a bad idea. Yeah, don't do it. Jules says, I'm sure someone might have asked it, but I haven't seen it answered. Why not run the recommended 1103 11,000 kV motors that Caillou says to run? Because 11 series motors that are 11 millimeters wide and less only have enough room in the stator. Yeah, I'll give you a full answer. So, eyes are starting to look a little bit better. Jesus Christ, I look like a fucking ghoul! As the stator gets wider, there's more room on the inside here for the motor shaft. And so they make the motor shaft thicker. This is a model of an 0702. 0702 motors have, most 0702 motors have a 1.5 millimeter thick motor shaft here below the bell. And then, as you can see, they neck down to a 1 millimeter shaft up above the bell. Okay? And the 1 millimeter motor shaft is not quite strong enough, but it's just barely strong enough. Weebleed has a couple of 0702 motors where this whole motor shaft is 1.5 millimeters above and below. And so on a 19 gram, 18 gram, 17 gram tiny whoop, when we have a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft up here, it is strong enough. Okay, plastic frame. And so 7 millimeter wide stator, you blow this up to 11 millimeters, and we still have roughly that same amount of space here. So from 07 to 11, we have a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft down here below the bell. And that's important. Down below the bell, it kind of sits like that. Come on. Well, no, I'll show you exactly where it sits. I've never done this before, actually. I've never looked at where this sits. Okay, so look. See this area in here? This can bend. This can absolutely bend all day long. On a motor like this that goes from 1.5 to 1, it's always going to bend up here. But once this motor shaft is all 1.5, it's going to bend as far down as possible because that's how leverage works, right? You apply a force up here, the weakest point is going to be down here. And so it wants to bend all the way down here. So we go from an 07 width motor to 08 to 09 to 10 to 11 to 12. Well, not to 12. When you get to 11, you still have a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. But what has happened to the size of the build? It's gotten way more powerful and way heavier, right? A 20-something gram all-up weight tiny whoop versus 100-something gram carbon fiber framed, right, holding the motors really hard, going 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, right? And so we want this to be thicker. And that happens at 12. At 12 width motors, we now have enough space in here to make the hole in the middle bigger, which is inside of bearings and yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, long story short, the 12 series motors go from a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft below the bell to a 2 millimeter motor shaft below the bell. Up above the bell, all of our propellers are a 1.5 millimeter center hole. But that starts to not matter because we start to use T-mount screws. And so the T-mount screws hunker the propeller down to the bell. So we're not worried about the motor shaft bending above the bell anymore because the T-mount screws are what's holding it down and giving it all of its strength. And so you stop bending the motor shaft up here as soon as you use T-mount screws, and you start bending the motor shaft below the bell because that's where it's getting the most leverage. And so 1103 motors, while they fly great, they bend constantly. So you end up with a rig that, you know, you just can't fly super hard and crash all the time. You got to kind of baby it around because these things are powerful, right? They make a lot of power. They make a lot of energy. And so when they crash, they hit like a ton of bricks, all things considered. And so, yeah, getting to a 12 series motor with all of these, not just these 2.5-inch rigs, the 2-inch rigs as well. These 2-inch carbon fiber builds make plenty of power, and they are plenty heavy enough to bend the 1.5 millimeter motor shafts. And so we want to get to the 12 series motors. What stinks at the moment is that the sub 250G 2-inch frames only accept 3-bolt mounting. And there are no 12 series motors that are 3-bolt motor mounts that I've been able to find. And so, yeah, I'm really, really, really hoping that, I believe his name is Philip, the man behind sub 250G FPV on Instagram. I really hope he's okay. I was talking to him quite a bit a few months ago, and his Instagram channels, he has sub 250, sub 100, and I think he even has sub 50. His Instagram channels are super popular, and they were doing really, really well, and he was posting all the time. And we were talking about doing a 4-bolt version of these 2-inch frames, and then he just vanished. And I've talked to a few people, and everybody says the same thing. He's just completely disappeared. No updates on the Instagram channels, no replies to any messages. And so I really hope that he's okay. Because, yeah, typically when people just completely disappear like that, it's not great. Hopefully he just got burned out, which is super common in FPV and in many things. And hopefully he's just taken a whatever. I don't care how long of a break it is that he's taking, as long as he's okay. Because he seemed like a really cool guy, and yeah. So hopefully he all right. But yeah, at the moment, his 2-inch frames, which I really, really, really like. The Max Frames M2 is great, but the carbon fiber is rotated 45 degrees in the wrong direction, which causes some issues. And so I'm working on getting Max to do a run of his M2s with the carbon fiber rotated, so it goes the length of the arms. And it looks like on his new frame, on his 2.5-inch frame, it looks like he's made that change, and it looks like the carbon fiber is going the length of the arms. So that's great. But yeah, I'm kind of waiting. His frame has both hole mounting, so you can do 4-bolt or 3-bolt. And so on his, this is the Max Frames M2. And this has 1202.5 motors. And I can hammer the ever-living balls out of this thing, and these motor shafts never bend. But the arms are very floppy on this because the carbon fiber is not oriented in the direction that I think is correct. Sub 250G, baby turtle frame, same kind of deal, same kind of test. You can barely see the arms flexing because the weave is going the length of the arms. It's kind of hard to see it, but yeah, this is the way that the carbon fiber weave should look. This is the way, in my opinion, it should not look. And so, yeah, this frame design, I'm going to say, is better because it has the 3 and 4 bolt mounting. But yeah, unfortunately the weave is 45 degrees in the weird direction. Makes the base plate stronger front to rear, but that doesn't really help us out with much. Ryan Sadat says, did you ever try the Caillou Mini on bi-blades to see if they pull less amps and possibly still have enough grip to fly the way you want? Nope, because there are no good bi-blades. There are no 2.5-inch bi-blades that are even remotely worth running. There's only one 2-inch bi-blade that's even remotely worth running, the Gemfan 2015, and it's not very well balanced, but it's kind of well balanced enough. But yeah, in the 2.5-inch world and in the 3-inch world as well, there are no bi-blades that are any good. The closest thing that we have to it is in the 3-inch world. We've got the toothpick bi-blades, the 30. I want to say they're 3016. Don't quote me on that, but there is a set of somewhat well-balanced Gemfan bi-blades, but they're very low pitch, and you have to put a shitload of RPM through them to make any power out of them. In the 2.5-inch world, we don't even have that. We don't even have a remotely decent option. So, yeah, I would love to. Going from a 3-blade prop to a 2-blade prop makes it handle the wind a lot better because you have less plastic to catch the wind. The main reason that I built this AOS Cine 3.5 is that there are a good set of 3.5-inch biblades by HQ. This entire build is because of these propellers. I don't want this to be as big as it. This is too big. I don't love how big this is. But the extra weight and the biblades make this thing so much better in the wind. It's absurd. Than the 3-inch version of this, which has the same AIO, roughly the same motors. Actually, they're bigger. They're bigger motors, considering the prop size. The 3-inch version of this has 1504s. This only has 1604s. When you go from like a 3 to a 3.5-inch prop, you would want to go even bigger. This would be better off on like maybe 1804s or maybe even 2004s. But these biblades are so lightweight, and I wanted to keep the weight down as low as possible because this frame is a lot heavier. I went with a smaller motor. But still, even with the smaller motor with not as good response time, this thing is so much better in the wind. But I might have flown a little too close to the sun with flight performance here, because this thing being so big might be a part of the reason that the safety folks are freaking out. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it isn't. There's another guy that covers a lot of these cycling races, who usually does photography. He does still photography and photography drone stuff, but lately he's gotten into FPV and just immediately thinks he's God's gift to flying, and is flying very sketchy. He's flying open prop rigs, very sketchy, very out of control. And so more likely it's him. And from what I'm being told from the people that are kind of like on the inside, it is because of him. But yeah, that's a shame, but there's not a lot that I can do about it. If anything, there's really nothing I can do about it. But it's fine for him. He has still photography and to fall back on, so he'll be fine. He'll just ruin it for everybody else. So no big deal. From what I told, he's kind of a dick too. Thinks kind of one of these people that thinks their shit don't stink. It does. All of our shit stinks. It's awful. It smells terrible. Ryan also says, by the way, was going to recommend trying the Dogcom 560 mAh2S battery. Not much heavier than the other 550, but holds its voltage incredibly well. Not sure how, but it stays significantly less. Nice. I wish that would fit on this. 450 is absolutely as big as I can fit on this setup. Brandon Bean says, I was listening in while doing some work regarding the Criterion safety team. Just adhere to Category 1 regs, and they should be fine with that. Yeah, I wish. So that is what the guy that initially brought me into this cycling world, Brad Soner, who is the announcer, actually, amazing guy. He's always vouched for me, and so when he just understands FPV and loves it, and he's just a cool dude. When he found out about this, he went straight to them, and he was like, this is a terrible... Because one of the first things that they said is they wanted to have a 16-foot bubble around... What the fuck they got 16 feet from? But they want to have a 16-foot bubble around the cyclists that we can't go within. And so his first response to them was like, okay, then we just basically won't have FPV because that's where they live. And don't do that to us, because everybody loves the FPV coverage. It's the one thing that gets people like super excited and yada yada. And so him and I had a big long conversation of like, how do we fucking sell these people on it? And at the time I was also messaging a couple of the pilots flying a lot of these live concert gigs. Like Somatic Cinema. Somatic was a hardcore CiottiFPV chat participator for a while before he started getting these gigs that keep him super busy. And so him and I have always talked. And I know that in that world, live concert FPV, the safety concerns are big. So yeah, I just shot a couple messages out to him and a few other folks in that world, like, you know, what have you had the best luck with? Like, what's the thing that actually gets people to wake the hell up? And they all said the same two things, which is FAA has already done this for us, and, you know, they put research behind it and whatever, and it's what is full-blown legal, and so that should be enough in itself, which is exactly what Brandon's saying. But they also, and I totally didn't even think about this, but they also all said the same thing, which is that if the fucking Olympics can do it, then a piddly ass little cycling, not piddly ass, but like compared to the Olympics, right? The cycling community should also want FPV and be totally cool with it. And if you remember, at the Olympics, they were fucking chasing bobsled folks with no prop guards, like sub 250, sure, but no prop guards even. And so, yeah, the Winter Olympics were not held in the US. That would have not been, I wonder if they could have gotten a waiver or something to get around that in the US with how big that production was. I wonder. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Brandon. But that doesn't mean anything. You know, the as soon as people get any amount of power, they want to change things and they want to feel powerful, and, you know, stomping on stuff just because they think it's unsafe. It feels, here we go again, it feels like this, and so I don't need to have any actual intelligence, I just need to feel things, because if it feels right, it must be right, because I'm the center of the universe, I have main character syndrome. So yeah, that is our approach at the moment. Is FAA has already done this for us, and if the Olympics did it, why the hell shouldn't we? That's what Brad and I kind of figured out are like the two big things that are going to hit the hardest in hopefully. But I'm not super confident, to be really honest, because because of this other guy, Ron Short, who is just, people are scared. Like, apparently people are scared, and supposedly so what he's doing at the moment right now, previously it was Avata, so he was wobbling an Avata and an Avata 2 around, which are 399 grams, and like don't have a proper, in my opinion, don't have a proper disarm. There have been scenarios where FPV pilots who know how to disarm stuff have had Avata and Avata 2s refuse to disarm. And that's horrifying. And they also just, I don't know. When there's GPS involved, when there's return to home, when there's all this automation involved, I become super uncomfortable, because like, what happens if I'm under a tree and it decides to return to home because the battery's low, or it loses, like, there's just, to me, having these things be manually controlled with the fail safes that we set, with us putting a bunch of thought into how we set these things up to be as safe as possible for the specific scenario that we're going to be flying in, that is the safest way to do it. Having a company build a bunch of shit in that in a lot of scenarios is the safest way of doing it, that's totally different. What if you're flying in between buildings? What if you're flying in a parking garage? What if you're flying under trees? What if there's people below you? What, right? Like, and so, yeah, not safe. Now what he's doing is flying an anti-gravity A1. So no prop guards, 360 cameras, and he's like inches above these cyclists' heads, like hovering when they're coming through at like 35 miles an hour, doing like head-ons with them, like just, and he's not a good FPV pilot. He's not an FPV pilot at all. He isn't. He hasn't spent any of the time. He hasn't paid his dues. He hasn't crashed the things to figure out what not to do, what to do, right? Like, proper FPV pilots spend years to develop the flying skill set to fly safely. And in that process, we make all of the other mistakes that we also need to learn. And the worst thing about the Avadas, and the worst thing about the DJI Potato, and the worst thing about the anti-gravity, and all these FPV rigs that are genuinely very easy to fly, is that it takes away that barrier to entry, and it makes for some really unsafe shit that can very easily happen. And that is hard, man. That is so hard to watch that happening to something that I really love doing, and is like such a cool use for FPV. It's really tough to see somebody just kind of shitting all over that, you know, and just not caring about the safety of these cyclists, the livelihood of other people that are trying to do this in a way that's safe. But yeah, what do I know? Sorry to get all fired up. I'm really passionate about this. I'm really fucking passionate about using FPV in live broadcast settings, but it can go wrong so quickly. And for non-FPV pilots to be doing it in such an extreme way is somebody's going to get hurt. Guaranteed somebody's going to get hurt. And when one of these riders catches a non-prop guarded 250 gram 360 drum to the fucking face, that's it. It's over. The safety commission's going to go, nope, done. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him for a fucking second. So, yeah. Not cool. Not cool. Hey, our battery is done. Let's use this Kiwi Quads thing. Okay. Betaflight MAH reading when I brought it in at a comfortable level. So we're gonna go to the first battery here. This is also when the scale was at 800. So I gotta kind of remember that. So we came in with the battery at a hover at we're gonna say 3.57. This is kind of close enough. 231 milliamps. I'm going to bump that number up a little bit because I do like to bring the batteries down at 3.50. So I'm going to say 240. 232, 233, 234. Yeah, I'm going to say 240 just for the sake of argument. So 240. All right? 240. Charger MAH replaced. Jesus, I can't read it. Let's say 210. What? Fair enough. 210. That seems awful low. Why is it only 210? It's a 450 mAh battery. Is the Toothster lying to me? Betaflight old scale. So the old scale was 800. Something ain't right. Because this is telling me to go up on the scale, but I went down on the scale and it made the situation a lot better. So something ain't right here. I think this is the problem. I think that the Toothster is not giving me the right MAH that it is putting back into the battery. And so to test that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly the battery again, and I'm going to charge it on the ISDT charger. And I'll fly it down to the same amount, and I'll see how much the ISDT charger puts back into it, because yeah, this ain't right. There's no way that I only used half of this battery, because I flew the damn thing for 3 minutes, and well, I mean, so the battery charges to 4.25 per cell. And then when I start flying it, it sags down to 4.10. This is like all of these. So 4.10, 4.35. So that's a 0.25 difference. So 3.58 plus 0.25 is 3.678, 3.83. Yeah, no. The Toothster is giving me the wrong milliamp putty backy any. This should be, maybe it's only half. Maybe this should be 420. Nah. Hey! Okay, that's the deal. The toothster is... Oh, the toothster is telling me how many milliamps were put into each cell. That's what it's doing. That's a weird thing. That's a weird way of calculating that. Or can I just not see it? I am having a hell of a time focusing today. No, it says 210. That's weird. Yeah, 210 per cell. Because this makes sense, right? Because I moved the scale down to 500. I moved it from 800 to 500. And we went from 230 mAh used at the end of the battery when it was at the scale was at 800 to 345 mAh used at the end of the battery. So yeah, 457 is a lot closer. It's still probably not quite right. I probably want to go down to like 400. So let me actually do that before I forget, if I haven't already. Cool. And so the Kiwi tool says to now fly it and redo it, and then you'll get it dialed in, and they're exactly right. Power and battery. Oh, I went all the way down to 300. I'm not going to go quite down to 300. That's probably too low. I'm actually going to go to 400. I went to 300 at the beginning of the live stream. So yeah, we're going to go to 400. I bet you that's right. I bet you 400 is just about perfect. And so yeah, now I fly another battery, see how many mAh it thinks it used at the end of the battery, and then just keep dialing in. That's really weird that the tooster only tells you per cell. Why would it not? That might be like a leftover. That might be leftover from them making the 1S boards first. Maybe they like forgot to change that or whatever. That's a little weird. But yeah, Kiwi tool works as long as the charger tells you the right number here. Alphaxis says, shout out to RVS. It's the same when we order from the USA. Wow. That's crazy. Crazy. Alphaxis, I was actually considering bugging you. I'm glad that you offered it. Alphaxis says, shoot me a message. I might be able to help you out. Maybe I can send a care package. Essentially, Alphaxis would buy the stuff and then put it in a package that doesn't say, hey, tariff the shit out of this, you cheeseburger eating fucks. Uriel says, most of the time it's in the advanced tax paid, not sending cost at all at AliExpress. Jimmy the Cow says, moo. Jimmy the Cow also says something, but YouTube decided that I shouldn't be able to read it and scrolled me to the bottom. Come on. Where was it? Wow, I'm really behind on chat. I am so far behind on chat. There it is. Jimmy the Cow says, with the G-Shock, ... This is not a G-Shock, but it is a Casio. This is like a precursor to the G-Shocks. G-Shocks are great watches, though. They're a little big for my itty-bitty wrists. Ryan Sadat says, I'm surprised the AMAX motors aren't as durable. It seems like all their motors are heavier than the other motors the same size. It would have led me to believe that they were durable. I think it's the weird bell designs that they do. Brands Bean says, wow, that's a tiny motor with a motor screw. How's that work? They just make the motor shaft hollow down in the very bottom, which doesn't take a lot of side load. And so, yeah, there's like one or two itty bitty motors that have little M2 screws, little M1.5 screws, and it's fine. It's annoying that more don't do it. I'm sure it's more expensive to produce them like that. Ryan Sadat says, not only do the AMAX motors let you choose the motor mounting, but some even let you choose prop mounting, T-mount versus just the motor shaft on the belt. Yeah, these, oh God, I forgot to mention, these AMAX Performante 1303 7500s that I have here, they're actually a 2mm motor shaft above the bell, so you have to drill the props out. So these these motors are gonna end up going in the garbage because 2 of them are bad, 2 of them are fine, but they've got that stupid 2mm motor shaft, which just nobody uses. No, way back when FPV Cycle went down that road, and they have a little kit to drill the props out, but nobody has the kit. Yeah. FistPV says autocross is a close second to me. First would be 500cc road race bike with 30 other drivers driving around, diving into the first corner. Yeah, dude. When you get other people in close quarters, though, so much bad shit happens so quick. Autocross is nice because you're just out there alone. It's basically time trials. Uriel says, to free glight a wing FPV is, for me, the extra flying like Angel, go with the flow. Yeah, I wish the wings would get somehow magically more stable, because it would be cool to fly a wing, but man, they bobble around so much. I feel like it would just be it would take away a lot of the enjoyment of flying. Ego says, have you seen the HD0 Gamma 45 amp AIO? That might be a good shout out for an AIO for you. It does not have ELRS on board, unfortunately. Ryan says, thank you for not canceling the stream and coming through for us. Hope you feel better, dude. Thank you, man. Ryan also says, did we ever figure out what the deal with Dynamic Idle on 1S was? What the warning about destroying our ESCs was all about? Run was a big deal, and then people just ran it anyways. Yeah, it's not real. But there's a lot of 1S AIOs that won't work for some unknown reason with Dynamic Idle. So, but yeah, Uriel says, if so many battery, buy bad use. I agree. Razorbean says, they mean the current MAH reading. There we go. As in what it says right now. Striker says, what do you think is a good motor for the weird 3-hole mounting on 2-inch that is actually durable? Is there one even? Nope. Basically, you want to go as light as possible. If you can't get a more durable motor, you have to reduce as much weight as possible. That's the only way. For me, it is running motor plugs, buying extra motors, and swapping them out, because they're going to break. And so if you have motor plugs, it's not a total nightmare to swap them out. On 2S, the resistance of the motor plugs is less of a big deal than with 1S. I have a bunch of these rigs. Hell, I even have a 2.5-inch rig with motor plugs on it, and it's absolutely fine. The runtime is great, makes great power, no complaints. Liquid contact enhancer, which I still do sell on my Etsy store, is going to improve the motor plugs by at least 5% or so, and then just enjoy being able to swap motors in 4 minutes instead of 40 minutes. Ryan says, do the T-mount props reduce the chance of bending shafts on the 11mm wide stators, or think the inner shaft is too fragile regardless? So the less than 11mm wide motors, so we're bending, it's a 1.5. Yeah, it's gonna make the situation a little bit better. The problem is the weight penalty of T-mount screws is way worse the smaller the motors are. And so, yes, it is going to make the situation better, because when you run T-mount screws, you'll never bend the motor shaft up here. So you would stop bending the 1.5mm motor shaft up here. But it's still a 1.5mm motor shaft down below the bell, and so that's just going to keep bending. And so the way that you can tell, if you want to test that, is the way you can tell is whether or not the bell is wobbling versus the propeller. If the motor shaft bends up here, only the propeller will wobble. If the motor shaft bends down below the bell, the whole bell will wobble. And the failures that I've seen, the whole bell is wobbling, which means that the motor shaft bent down here. And kind of like the only way you can bend the motor shaft up here is if the propeller slips upwards. If the propeller stays all the way down against the top of the bell, like you see here with these Aquila 20 motors, you're not going to bend the motor shaft unless in the crash the prop slips upwards and then it can bend. And so yeah, the failures that I've seen on these 1003s and 1103s, the whole bell wobbles, which means that the T-mount screws would not have helped the situation. Good question. Apache Smoke Wooded Snipers in the chat. What's up, brother? He says, how you doing, my friend? Long time no see. I'm still in a bit of a struggle, but that's life. That is life. I hope you feel better soon, man. Ryan Sadat says, I like the idea of lighter and slightly more fragile motors with easily swappable bells like the AMAX motors. That would be nice. Having a screw on the bottom is probably so convenient. Yep, it would be really cool if more folks would do that. But they don't. Apache Smoke says, by the way, still testing the new T-Hobby 2S AIO, still going strong. Love that. Striker says, low-key Ciotti, are you supposed to use rubber bands for battery mounting on 2-inch? I might, depending on if you tried it or think it's shit or not. I don't personally like it. The rubber bands are a little too stretchy, and then like they wear out and they tear and shit like that. But high key, you could probably get away with it. The whole low key, high key thing doesn't make much sense to me. And so I try my best to use it incorrectly to make the people that understand it as uncomfortable as possible. So high key, I'm an asshole. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but C2C says fly a fresh battery and then charge the same battery and try again. Yep. So that's what we just basically did. And that's the same process that I sort of use. This Kiwi Quads calculator, I'm sure that it'll reduce the number of charge discharge cycles by like maybe 1 or 2. I'm just super used to doing it the guess way. And like, to be honest too, like yeah, I don't know. The key, there's no reason not to use it. Here's the link to the Kiwi Quads calibration tool in the chat. There you go. For anybody that doesn't have access to the chat, here's the URL, and then here's the other URL to the stator calibration tool. These are both really, really good. Frank Dr. says charging at high amps will peak the battery earlier. Think of filling a bottle with full tap speed versus trickling in. Can't get as much in. Interesting. So the only reason that would happen would be because of motor heat, but it was so low. I mean, it's half. It's too low. It's based on 1S. I recently saw a really interesting test that somebody did with how a battery runs when you pull it off the charger, when you've charged it at high amps versus low amps. And the batteries actually run a lot better when you charge them. They were charging them up at 6 amp. They were comparing 2 amp charge to 6 amp charge. And when you charge them at 6 amps, you pull the battery off the charger and you fly them, they perform a lot better. But that's just because they're getting hot. Batteries perform better when they're a little hot. Not when they're boiling hot, but when they're a little bit above room temperature, 80, 90, 100 degrees. And that's all that test is really showing. When you charge them at 6 amps, the battery gets hot because you're cramming the electricity into it. I'd never heard of or thought about charging at higher amps peaking the battery earlier. But man, this testing showed a hell of an improvement in the batteries running from after being charged at 6 amps. Kind of crazy. For the record, if you charge batteries at 6 amps, they're not going to last nearly as long. We discharge them when we fly them at way more than 6 amps. And so like all of the damage gets done when we're actually flying them. But still, limiting the amount of damage. Yeah. And charging at 6 amps can burn your house down, so don't do it. C2C says, it really does not matter if you go to 3.2 or 3.5. Just get MAH used, reading, and charge. See what's put back in. That's all you need to do. I mean, It kind of does matter though, because if you normally charge your if you run the battery all the way down to 3.2 and then you do all the calculations and you get the counter set properly, you're always going to fly your batteries down to 3.2. And so if that's not what you want, that's why that first line I thought was worded so perfectly. I love this. I love that they specifically called out until you're comfortable its capacity has been used, because that's what really matters. So I personally, I think it does matter, but I think I know what you're saying. Brandon McBean says 210 per cell is still just 210 mAh for the pack. What? 210 per cell is 420 total, though, right? Because the battery is 450 mAh cells. And me flying this battery down to 3.5 something per cell and then only 210 going into it doesn't make any sense, because it's a 450 mAh battery. Luca says, could too high of a KV be a reason for bad sag? Absolutely. I'm on 1002 18,000 2S and I sag tons. Should I motor limit? So too high of a KV is another way of a motor pulling too hard from the battery. In the same way that putting a motor on that's physically too big, the fact that it's physically too big, it's going to pull really hard on the battery. A motor that is like way too high of a KV, it's going to accomplish the same thing. The motor, it's going to pull from that battery. Like, as powerful as the motor is, that's how much it's going to pull for the battery. Motors get power from being big and or from having a shitload of RPM potential, high KV. And so, yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you that 18,000 KV on 2S is mega, mega, mega RPM. And you should almost certainly motor limit. I don't know anything else about the build. I don't know the all-up weight. I don't know what size propellers, stuff like that. But yeah, like a 1002 motor on 18,000 kV with 2S, the only propeller that would pair really well with would be like a 1.2 or maybe even a 1.4 inch prop. You probably have a 1.6 or 1.8 or 2 inch prop on there. And yeah, that's way too much KV for those bigger propellers, even if they're biblades. CiottiFPV says, just beat the hard route on the Star Fox remake. Nice. Saw some levels. I never did it as a kid. Got the true ending. I'm a happy camper. Love that. Star Fox was a big part of my youth. On Nintendo 64. Ryan Sadat says, T-Hobby and its FPV just released a 1604.5 with a 3mm shaft above the bell. Looks indestructible. They got GemFan to make special props for it. People are drilling out 1.5, 2mm props for now. There should just be an adapter. FPV Cycle did the 3mm shaft thing eons ago. And they just shipped the motor with a little sleeve that is 3mm inner diameter, 5mm, whatever the hell regular 5-inch props are, outer diameter. And so, but Brother Hobby made that motor, from what I can remember. Might have been RC and Power. It wasn't T-Hobby. And so maybe T-Hobby didn't realize that they can just have this little adapter and then you can run all the M5 props. So yeah, that's it. But what's cool about it is that 1604.5 is now the smallest motor that you can get with a 3mm shaft. Previous, it was the 2104s. No, I think they made the 1606. I think the FPV Cycle 1606 was also a 3mm motor shaft. So the 1606 is a little bit smaller, I think, than the 2104s. But yeah, it's good to have another motor with the 3mm shaft. That's awesome. Uriel says, and to all in emergency, oh god, use rubbers. Striker says 67 people watching stream, by the way. Very cool. FizzPV says, cue the Dennis Leary song. Man, I loved Dennis Leary growing up. Sporny says, on some chargers, you can choose the balancing speed so it slows down earlier. At the end, it charges the battery at lower amps. I think most chargers do that. I see most chargers do that. Brainswiping says, no, it's just 210 mAh. You don't add them up. Oh, I see what you're saying. ISDT chargers are not like that. ISDT chargers, I think, like, if I discharge a 1050 mAh battery, it'll charge it back up and tell me 1,000 milliamps has gone back in. Oh, yeah, right. Of course. I never realized that. Yeah. Huh. So what? So why are they saying record the total? Okay, so that's why they said total. Record the total mAh put into the battery. That's why they said that. Yeah, so you have to do the math yourself. I don't think I ever. Is that how the ISDT works? Wait, what? Hold on. What? No. This 450 milliamp battery is 2S 450 mAh battery. It is 2 450 mAh pouches. Right? Yeah. Right? Hold on. I know how to test this. We have 1S batteries. We have 2S batteries. This is fine. Look, my fucking head's about to explode. Hold on. Okay. 450 mAh 1S battery. We can figure this out with a scale. Oh my god, it's after 5 o'clock already. We didn't do anything. I wanted to start putting these motors on, and I have to go teach a fucking dance class tonight. 1S we gotta figure this out quick. 1S 450 mAh battery is 12.4 grams. 2S 450 milliamp battery with a bunch of extra wires and shit, but is 26.0 grams. Okay, so 12 to 26. Cool. So 1S 450 mAh battery is one 450 mAh cell. 2S 450 mAh battery is two 450 mAh cells. If I put this on the charger, if I fly this all the way down, and then I put it on the charger, why should the charger not tell me that it has put roughly 400 to 450 mAh back into it? Why would that be the case? Why is it reporting half of that? Explain that to me. That doesn't make any sense. This is 900 milliamps total. If anything, I would think that the problem would be chargers that say that they've put 400 back into it versus putting 900 back into it. I would think that would be the problem, not the charger telling me it put half as much back into it. Right? What am I missing here? And when I put those numbers into this, the results were completely fucking wrong. When I put 210 in here, the Betaflight new scale was absolutely 100% incorrect. It was in the complete wrong direction, as if that number was completely wrong, and or that number was half. So where's the disconnect here? Other than just me being as dumb as a sack of bricks, which is a given. I mean, if you've been around here for any amount of time, you should know that by now. Where's that disconnect at, friends? Uriel says, you got me disturbed again with batteries. Fair enough. Jules says, thanks for the awesome answer to my question earlier. I just rewatched it to see, and I never thought of motor shaft sizes based on motor size. Thanks for all your knowledge that you share. You're certainly welcome. Frank Dr. Nicholas says 450 mAh 2S in parallel versus 450 mAh 2P would be 900 milliamp hours. This is a parallel. Is this? So it's putting. Brainstorming says it's still a 450 mAh 2S battery. It has double the watt hours of the 1S. Yep, but same mAh. No, not the same mAh. Oh, well, the same mAh per cell. But yeah, the total watt hours. Yeah, okay. MAH are not units of total energy, but watt. Okay, all right. Well, sure. That fair enough. The when we say the MAH of the battery, it's referring to the size of the individual cells. But then when I say two 450 mAh cells are 900 total, that's just me saying that, right? I understand they would never put that on the battery, but yeah, fair enough. Frank says parallel versus serial. Yeah, but wouldn't that go the opposite direction? Wouldn't it say 900 instead of... Why is it going down? Why is it saying 210? What? Because if it put 210 into each individual cell, then it would only be half charging each individual cell. If it was saying that it put 210 mAh total into it, then it would only be charging each individual cell 25%, right? It's like opposite. We're in backwards land. Brainstorming says if you want to test the capacity, you need to drain it to 3 volts. Probably, since you only drained it to storage voltage. Basically, then you only used half the rated mAh. I mean, 3.6 at a hover, though. 3.6 at a hover. Yeah, I mean, I guess disarmed without the 04 running. I guess I can see it maybe bouncing from 3.6 to 3.8. Which is storage voltage, but wow, yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy to me that that the number is so low. Well, whatever. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it actually doesn't matter, because what we're doing by setting that amp scale is we're setting a number that when that number gets to 450 and tells me in my OSD that I've used 450 mAh, it's time to land. That's what we're actually doing. If I wanted to see that number say 10,000 as a signal for me to land, great. I could change the scale to be 10,000. All it is giving us a number, a countdown, something so that we know how close to the end of the capacity of the battery that we're at. And so it really doesn't matter. You can set that scale to whatever you want. Especially if you follow the instructions. Fly a battery pack until you're comfortable its capacity has been used. Perfect. Absolutely perfect description of it. For me, I think the capacity has been used when it's at 3.5 at a hover, because when I then disarm it and let it sit on the shelf, the voltage bounces back to at least 3.6, sometimes 3.7, which is pretty damn close to storage voltage, which is where these batteries want to be to have as little damage occur as possible when they're just sitting for days and days and days. And so, yeah. Crazy. I've never noticed that little, and I still think it's wrong. I still think that the Tooster is saying that it's putting 210 into each individual cell, and it's actually putting 420 total. I could totally be wrong here, but I am going to test it. I'm going to fly this battery down, and I'm going to charge it on the ISDT, because I've never noticed in 10 years a charger telling me that it's putting less than half as much milliamp back into the battery. I've never noticed that. And so I think the Tooster is calculating the per cell in some awkward way that most chargers don't. But yeah, it truly doesn't matter. All right, people, I gotta roll. I'm sorry that we didn't do anything other than opening these 1203s. I'll fly one battery for you because I did put hashtag 6 batteries into the live stream, and I do want to try to inspire you to fly today. I want you to fly every single day because it takes a long time and a lot of batteries to get good at this shit. But it is worth it. And sometimes we just need a little bit of a kick in the ass to do it, and if I'm not kicking the ass, then my life is complete. This is a Lava V2 280 Light Boy battery on an Ultimate Freestyle Tiny Whoop. Come on. I'm going to fly 1. You should fly 6, my friends. Here's what's possible if you start flying 6 Tiny Whoop batteries a day every single day. Oh, so close. Do this while the battery's fresh. Ah! Do this while the battery's fresh. Slow down, fan! I don't understand why increasing the speed of an orbit makes it so much, like, orders of magnitude more difficult. On the old fan that was up there that spun a little bit slower, I could get locked in quickly and easily and exactly mirror the speed of the damn thing. This fan, boy, it is not like that at all. Maybe this fan just spins like a lot faster. Oh, shit. Oh! I thought I could maybe pull that off, but it was a stretch. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Nope, 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 nope. There it is. Oh, hey. Didn't know I was going to do a perch there, but I'll take it. Oh! The perch to Maddie. Oh, no. What? Stop it. Come on now. Let me out. Let me out. Yeah. That got me out. Now flip. Yeah. Oh, God. I just didn't do enough of a throttle blip to get it into the top of the dive tunnel. Woo, Jesus. Ah, so close. Oh no. Let me live. Oh no! What is wrong with me? Can't even fly behind the TV? Jesus, what a chump. Oh, come on now. Oh no! What not to do to your batteries right here. I'm not even going to fly it back to myself. It is too low. Trying to get a bunch of my three old 3-inch frames figured out. All right, people. Thanks for hanging. Sorry for just in general having this face. I'll see you guys tomorrow night at 10. Is it a no, giveaways next Monday. Tomorrow night will be a Kevin Sumner hang session as the voice of God. Be good. I'll see you tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. Bye. Here's a little bit more of the Caillou Mini flight from a little bit earlier. No. Here's the Caillou Mini at Maggie, my friend, Heather and Jess's house. Just blopping around in the backyard, having a good old time. See you tomorrow night.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy Spaghetti's fur flies and jet wash dreams, yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Big fuzz and prop spin all tangled in place, yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed. They zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah. Soddy's on sticks, Teddy's on paws. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Soddy behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle Mike. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, diamond duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy Spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPV's fur-faced legends sing it loud. Yeah, Teddy Spaghetti and CiottiFPV always proud.